The Daytona 500 took place again this year on Sunday, February 20th, 2011. Once again, many cars finished the race by successfully completing 2,000 consecutive left turns.
Why are we determined to follow a foreign policy of empire building and preemption which is unbecoming of a constitutional republic? Those on the right should recall that the traditional conservative position of non-intervention was their position for most of the 20th century, and they benefited politically from the wars carelessly entered into by the left. 7 years ago, the right benefited politically by condemning the illegal intervention in Kosovo and Somalia. At the time, the right was outraged over the failed policy of nation building. It's important to recall that the left, in 2003, offered little opposition to the preemptive war in Iraq, and many are now not willing to stop it by defunding it or work to prevent an attack on Iran. The catch-all phrase, the war on terrorism, in all honesty, has no more meaning than if one wants to wage a war against criminal gangsterism. Terrorism is a tactic. You can't have a war against a tactic. It's deliberately vague and non-definable in order to justify and permit perpetual war anywhere and under any circumstances. Don't forget, the Iraqis and Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with any terrorist attack against us, including that on 9/11. Special interests and the demented philosophy of conquest have driven most wars throughout all of history. Rarely has the cause of liberty, as it was in our own revolution, been the driving force. In recent decades, our policies have been driven by neoconservative empire radicalism, profiteering in the military-industrial complex, misplaced do-good internationalism, mercantilistic notions regarding the need to control natural resources, and blind loyalty to various governments in the Middle East. For all the misinformation given the American people to justify our invasion, such as our need for national security, enforcing UN resolutions, removing a dictator, establishing a democracy, protecting our oil, the argument has been reduced to this: if we leave now, Iraq will be left in a mess, implying the implausible, that if we stay, it won't be a mess. Since it could go badly when we leave, that blame must be placed on those who took us there, not on those of us who now insist that Americans no longer need be killed or maimed, and that Americans no longer need to kill any more Iraqis. We've had enough of both.
The presidential election fervor has begun once again in earnest for the elections of 2012. Last cycle, Republican Ron Paul of Texas received more support from military and the general public than any other candidates and all other candidates combined. However, due to the structure of the Republican National Convention, he did not receive the nomination to run for president. The RNC is structured in a way that allows party leaders and not their constituents to decide who will run on their behalf. This cycle seems to resemble the last, as general polls show that Dr. Paul, whom has been elected over 10 times in his Texas district, is the only Republican capable of defeating President Obama in a general election. Representative Paul indirectly indicated his intentions to run in 2012 during his speech at CPAC, where he once again won their strong.
Across the border it came to me, reality, and definitely I was looking through the glass at poverty that was always there but never clear, and now I don't really
Middle East violence continues as citizens and troops who have defected begin to uprise in Libya after over 40 years of rule by Muammar Gaddafi. This new uprising and other actions in the Middle East are attributed to the recent developments in Egypt. The question now seems to be whether or not Libya will suffer the same fate as Egypt and begin to be ruled by a new military dictatorship. Muammar Gaddafi came to power after a bloodless coup in 1969, deposing King Idris and establishing the Libyan Arab Republic. Gaddafi has more recently come under fire from the United Nations after he made scathing comments against global monetary control by the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, and their recent increased attempts to force all nations of the world into what has been dubbed by the UN as a, quote, new global monetary system, end quote. Other countries that have objected to such developments have been Russia, Egypt, China, and more. It is important to note that these countries were currently moving to establish a new monetary organization to counterbalance the European Union and offer an alternative for themselves to a new global economic system controlled via European powers.